to Radiant Memoirs. I'm your co-host, Raisha, and to the right of me is
Tia B.
Tia B. Tia B in the his house. And today we're gonna be talking about navigating God's purpose. So this brings me into our first question. Are you a believer?
I am. Was I always a true believer? No, I wasn't. It took me a long time to understand who God was to me. And also, it took me a long time to trust Him too. My family is originally from Monrovia, Liberia. I grew up in a two-parent household. My mom came over here through the war. My dad, he was already here in the States. My dad is a pastor, so that's how we all got kind of acclimated to Christianity, and also with just learning about what it looked like from a traditional type of upbringing, and especially with African parents. We had to believe in God. Like, literally, like, especially with African parents, like, yeah. Those of you viewing, if you have African parents too, you know what I'm talking about. But, like, literally, like, every day was, well, not every day. Every Sunday, we went to church. Every Sunday. Yeah. If it was any, like, type of, mingling or anything, it was church people. Eat, breathe, sleep, church people, boy, we was in it, but I feel like going through that and just being in that space, like, a lot of the times, I kind of felt displaced because I couldn't really figure out where I fit in all that. Right. And this is me, like, when I'm 10, 11, I grew up majority of my childhood in the church home. So it wasn't until I got into, like, maybe middle school to high school type range where I started to question things, and more so started to question God. And that was around the same time where my aunt died. Yeah, that was around the same time that my aunt died. A lot of other people passed away in my family. So I was just questioning a lot of those types of things at the time. And I really tried to make sense of, where I fit in relation to all that. And I started asking God, like, why? Why are you taking all these amazing people from me? Right. Why? And at that time, I really didn't know my own purpose too. So I was in high school, going into high school, I really didn't know what I wanted to do either. So it was like a whole, like, shift. Like, it was like one thing after the other. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. Right. Let alone who God was to me. And so I had no, like, compass. I had no guide. I had no nothing. Even though I'm still in this church home, still going to church every day, still praising God with the same hymns, same everything. But I had no connection to those hymns. I had no connection to when my dad would go up to preach. He would say these amazing, beautiful words. And I would just love, like, seeing him up there. I'm like, wow, he's so majestic. He's so powerful and stuff. And it's like I wanted to believe what he said, but it was something in the back of my head that just had doubt. That just had, I was just like, why am I here? Like, I was like, why am I here? Like, I just wanna be with my friends right now. Like, why do we have to, like, how come every time it gets to, like, December or New Year's, how come I can't go to a party? We over here at Watch Night Service. Like, why?
Why I gotta get up on the weekend early?
Why? And I just got tired of that. And then I think what was the tipping point for me was that we had got up to go to church one day. I don't know if Tamara remembers this, but we had got up to go to church one day, and something told me, I was like, I don't want to go to church today. So I woke up, I went upstairs. My dad, he was yelling at us to come downstairs. And I told my dad straight up, I said, I'm not coming. That was like a whole argument in the house, like, literally. And I feel like that was the tipping point for me that time, where I just decided no. Like, I didn't want to go back to church. I didn't want to pursue that kind of relationship at the time. And that was very, different for me, but I feel like how that relates to now, I'm older now. I went throughout high school, went throughout college. I'm moving into a new direction in my life. And I realize that I need God more now than ever,
We all do.
And
we all do. So it's not just
we all do. And I feel like through therapy and through me learning how to rebuild myself, and also find myself in relation to everything I had going on at the time, I found my way back to God, and I found my way back to trusting His will for my life and His path. Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much my, I guess, puzzle like Tetris type explanation of am I a believer? And ultimately, yes, I am.
I don't have any immaculate stories like you do, but for me, my big mom, my grandmother's sister, she used to go to church every Sunday. So we have a family church back home in our hometown. And I used to go with her sometimes when I got in high school. All throughout middle school and high school, I started going more and more because one of my best friends, she also went to the same church. So even when my aunt wouldn't go, my great aunt wouldn't go, her mom would pick us up. Well, she'll pick me up and we'll go to church together. So that's how I got involved. But my grandmother, God rest her soul, but she was like the most amazing person. I think the reason why I'm such the believer that I am when it comes to God and Christ is because of her. She always instilled in us that you don't have to go to church to know God. You can learn God for yourself at home. And so when everyone keeps saying, oh, you have to go to church to know the Lord, you have to do this every Sunday, you really don't. And I feel like it's just based on personal preference. For me, my grandmother, I could call her and just ask about any scripture in the Bible, and she would tell me exactly what it was, what was happening around that time, everything. I remember calling her, of course, she was still living around this time, but I remember calling her, and I was in college, and I was like, Grandmother, what does this mean? And we sat on the phone for hours just talking about like the Word of God. And so for me, it kind of blossomed in that way because I felt like it was more of our connection. There was this one story about her. Like she was an amazing human being. She helped raise me. So I have a really strong connection to her as well. But she said that she was standing in her door, her front door, and it was pouring down raining, and the lightning struck, but it didn't come like she was standing in the door, and it was the screen door because the elderlies, they have like these old brick houses, not like how the houses are now, but it was like a brick house, and we had a screen door, and there was like another door. It didn't have a peephole. It was like a wooden door. And she said she was standing in the door, and literally the light stopped on the other side of the screen door while she was standing there. And it's just so crazy, just hearing stories like that, because it's like, I know God was surrounding her then. And so, or he had one of his angels surrounding her. So for me, it's a no-brainer. Yes. Yeah. I believe in God. So.
Yeah. And that's beautiful, honestly.
Thank you.
And I like how you surrounded or had that support system of people who also knew God too, to kind of bring you into that space. I also have that as well. And even though like both of our journeys to understanding who God is and who Christ is in general, even though they're both different, we still parallel one another beautifully, in my opinion. Yeah. So moving forward, we are going to the next part. And a really cool question I think we can ask, I think we can both answer it too, is how do we know that our steps are ordered by God right now?
Oh, for me, I've been through so much in my life at a young age, and my hometown is a really small town. It's not like the city, so I grew up in the country. We have 2 red lights. But I live in a community. My hometown is the type of community. It's family based. Everyone knows everyone. You can leave your front door unlocked, and no one is going in there because Mary Jo, beside your neighbor Mary Jo, she's not Miss Charlotte not gonna let nobody come in your house. Okay, so you can leave your door locked, and I feel like growing up in that type of atmosphere where it's family based and your neighbors have been your neighbors for years, and I grew up with I went to school with some of my neighbors' kids and their grandkids and stuff like that. And so it's really just looking at a collective, a community of love.
Yeah.
You know? But I wouldn't say that I've always been this way, because sometimes when I fall short, like just a couple of months ago, I felt myself kind of going through the pains and stuff and the ups and downs. And one minute I felt like I was on top of the world within my career and within my life and personal life as well. But for me, it was just like something is missing.
Yeah.
And I was so consumed with social media and everything else that I didn't make time for God in my life. And so when I first started Makeup Racia C, well, it wasn't even Makeup Racia C. This was years ago, about 10 years ago when I first started it. 2016 to be exact. Well, that's about 8 years. Yeah. So I was just doing it for fun. You know? So Stephanie Ike, she is a pastor with at Potter's House. And she is under the umbrella of Teray Roberts and Sarah J. Roberts. And so when I was there, she was asking for a makeup artist on Instagram. And I'm like, she's not going to reach back out to me. And she reached back out to me. That was my first time working with her, and it was amazing. So I flew out to, I think it was Pennsylvania, New Jersey at the time. And then we had conversation, and I wasn't sure where I was going with my career, and I had just graduated not just graduated from college, but I was already in the pit of my career. But I'm like, this doesn't really fulfill me, you know? So she ended up messaging me a couple of weeks later, and she was like, hey, I'm on a podcast and I need a makeup artist because mine fell through. And I'm like, she was like, can you get to LA tomorrow? And I'm like, yeah. Like, let's do it.
I'm gonna meet her.
You know? Yeah. I did not know I was going to be meeting with Kurt Franklin. And so when I finally landed in LA, she sent me the script. And his name was on it. So I called my husband. I was like, guess what? Like, I'm about to meet Kurt Franklin.
Really?
Like, because, you know, you hear his songs, you see him on TV. But then when you see someone in flesh, and you're like, oh my God, you know? And I'm not like really starstruck. And I wasn't starstruck when I met him. He was so down to earth. And we were talking, after the podcast was over, we were talking for hours. Well, not hours. Probably like a couple of minutes to an hour or two. And so it's just like every time I kind of feel like I'm just going to give up on makeup, I always come back through the church or through Christ. It's always in that regard. My first pop-up shop was in the church. And I was telling my husband that I was like, I know that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, I know that this is him ordering my steps because I'm moving through him. You know, I'm listening to him and I'm just, you know, following through on what he has already planned. You truly find your purpose. You know it's from God. Like, you automatically know, like, everything will just fall in line. And that's how it happened for me. So
exactly. Yeah. And I think, well, first of all, that was beautiful. Second of all, no, and just how you just talked about your experience and how it related to your business, but also with who you are as a person. Yeah. And not only that, but how you've grown as a person and related it back to your experiences. Like, honestly, that is so true. Like, whenever God is present, and how you know that he is ordering your steps, or he has ordered your steps, because he's already done it. You just have to figure it out for yourself. It's already established. You just have to get there. But the point of getting there comes from you, and it starts with you, you know? And I feel like the root of what you can begin to understand of what guides your steps is, like you said, finding what that community of love looks like for you. And for me, in college, I kind of navigated that for myself. At the moment, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I really didn't. So I jumped from major to major. I jumped from hobby to hobby, all just trying to figure out things outside of God's presence. And once I started realizing that, hey, this stuff is hard. It is hard, you know? Like, Somebody somewhere has to do it for me, because I'm not doing that. I just can't. I can't do it anymore. I really can't. So it wasn't until I hit rock bottom in college, like I was in depression, I had anxiety. Still do have anxiety. I've managed it, of course, through therapy and stuff. But it wasn't until I hit rock bottom and I actually just went into my bathroom and I looked at myself in the mirror. I was like, it can't get worse than this. Like, this is low. You know, like, you need somebody.
Exactly.
And so I kid you not, that was the first time where I actually started crying, but crying out in prayer, calling out to God. I hadn't done that in, I would say, maybe 5 years since I had not consistently been in church. So that was the first time I actually had an honest conversation with God, and also with myself too. Like, you have to get it together, but also you have to let love in. And through that, I was able to build and develop my own community of love through learning how to get acclimated with my sorority sisters, and then also learning how to give that energy back to my own family, be there, be present to my own family members, even my mom, my dad, the same dad that I was like, yo, I'm not going to church, you know, the same person, you know, and I just look at things so differently now. Even from college till now, I just look at things with more grace, you know, because that's what I would have wanted coming from that somebody, which I found out was,
it's the grace part,
was God, you know. And I feel like once I found that, I then realized that, wow, this is how he orders my steps. And I'm going to continue down this path, because the other path, boy, it was a path. I'm not doing that again, you know. And I feel like that was just beautiful. And I love how we came from two different backgrounds, but also we have the similar experiences in understanding God and how he directs our life, literally.
Exactly.
And that's just beautiful.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
I love that.
Yeah. And it goes to our next question. How do we know it's God's purpose, and also that it's not our flesh? Our flesh.
I would say for me,
I think you answered that a bit though.
I did. You know it's God. You know, everything just flows right. It feels right. It's a feeling that you get when you know that it's him. And honestly, when God wants you to do something, he removes things in your life that no longer needs that space, or it takes up that space, so that he will replace it with the things that you need to elevate to the next level. For me, throughout that, even before I launched Make a Righteous Seed, I went through a depression. When I got pregnant with my second kid, my daughter, I went through postpartum and depression so bad. I was suicidal, like it was really bad. And I used to write all the time. I was like, I don't understand, God, like, because I didn't have a job at the time. I had just got laid off from my position, and I'm like, I'm educated. I just went through 4 years of school. I just got married. All these ups, and it's like, bam, they lay you off. And we found out we were pregnant, and I was like, God, like, what? Like, I don't, like, are you punishing me? Like, what did I do to deserve this type of treatment for you? Exactly. Like, I love you, you know, but I would say that she was the biggest blessing of my life, because she's like my best friend. And I think God gives you exactly what you want. And that's why I say, going back to that last question, he's ordering your steps. And she came onto this earth to teach me how to be a friend to someone. And that's my daughter. You know, I already have a son, so I have someone that's gonna love their mom no matter what. But a mother-daughter bond is like none other. So to have that with my daughter now, she's 3, but the relationship that we have is like, she's my best friend in a toddler form. But you know when it's God, it's a feeling, and it's undeniable. And if you have faith in him the way that I have faith in him, if you love him, if you look to serve him, you'll know that it's him. So that's how I know.
No, really.
What about you?
For me, definitely, I always get a feeling of calm. You know, anything that has God in it is not going to be disastrous.
Oh, yeah.
It's not going to be erratic. You know, it's just going to flow.
Yep.
And it's just going to click for you. For me, I get a feeling of warmth. I get a feeling of, it's almost like somebody took their hand and placed it on my shoulder. And it's like a warm hand. You know how like
it's
like
like
your
a
grandma
little
or your
voice
grandpa
that's
or
just
like
telling you like do this.
Yeah,
you know?
or it's a voice, you know, and it's for me it's a huge voice too.
Yeah.
It's a huge voice.
Oh, you definitely hear it.
You will hear it. You will hear it. And if you try to ignore it, you're going to hear that voice.
Yeah.
You know,
yes,
so
you will.
For me, it's almost like when you have, like, I was saying, like, your grandma or your grandpa or your mom or dad or somebody, like, that has really seen you grow.
Yeah.
Actually take their hand and put it on your side, like, okay, take a rest. Take the back seat real quick. It's okay to.
Right.
And I feel like God does that for us and sends certain people to be an example of that.
Yeah.
For them to be like, hey, take a seat. It's fine.
Yeah.
I have it. Give me the reins.
Absolutely.
No, literally.
Yes.
And I just love how that continues to guide my own purpose, you know. And that's how I know that God is still with me. You know, by the people he's sending my way, the community that I'm building, but not only me, but the community that we're building too.
So guys, we have gotten to our special segment of our episode, and that is the Radiant Bank, where we literally have questions or statements from our viewers and our listeners. So I have one question for us today.
All right.
And that question is, describe the shift to God's purpose.
Ooh. That came with a lot of
it did.
Yeah, it's like full throttle, boy. Self-love.
Ooh.
Learning how to love myself again. Truly actually love myself again, not trying to overthink. It would be God, you know, and once I found that out, I recognized that why not have that same type of grace for myself?
Yeah.
And practice that. And I talked about that with my therapist, and we worked through it and stuff. And that was honestly the sole purpose of how I got out of my depression, especially going into the real world after college, you know. I feel like that's really what got me from that space. And that's why I'm stuck. I'm gonna stick beside him.
I'm gonna stick beside him, child.
I'm gonna stick beside him, you know. Well, thank you so much also for tuning in, let alone another episode. You can follow us on YouTube, Instagram. Did I leave out any other one?
TikTok.
You can follow us on all those platforms at Hey Radiant Memoirs. So definitely look us up if you love the types of conversations that we're having, because we definitely are having thought-driven, life-changing conversations talking about God, but also talking about healing and also sisterhood too. So if that strikes your attention, make sure you tune in with us for our next episode. Soon coming, right?
Soon coming.
All right. Y'all take care. Have a blessed day, and we'll see you back soon.
Thank you. Bye.